anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. Seneca. When's the last time you got into an argument with your partner? It's completely natural to get angry and want to yell and fight, but just because it's natural doesn't mean that it's a good idea. According to Stoic philosophy, anger is the most destructive emotion. Anger, writes Seneca, is a brief insanity, and the damage done by anger is enormous. No plague has cost the human race more. There is no middle ground when it comes to anger according to the Stoics. They see anger as a poor guide to happiness and have studied the emotion in depth. Stoicism is an ancient Greek philosophy that reminds us that we don't control and cannot predict external events, and that the only control we have is within us. This means that no one is responsible for making you angry. You are solely responsible for your emotions. Your feelings are your choices. If you choose anger over calm, you're not helping anything. In fact, you may just make everything worse. He really pushes my buttons. It's very difficult to control your anger once you've given into it. There are plenty of nasty, rude people in the world who don't care if they hurt you, and this is particularly troublesome if you're in a relationship with one. Here's a scenario. Mary has always been sensitive about her weight, and she's made that clear to her boyfriend Steve. Whenever Steve is upset with her, he'll say or do something that insinuates that she's overweight. Mary tries her best to remain in the moment and not let the re-experiences of all the old pain affect her. When Steve sees that she's unfazed, he'll keep pushing her buttons. Mary knows that Steve is an insensitive clod, so she takes a deep breath and tries to understand why Steve is upset in the first place instead of simply reacting to his provocations. Now, some people would argue that anger is the right response to Steve's insults. Steve, after all, deserves to be put in his place. But this would empower Steve because he achieved the desired response out of Mary. Instead, Mary took the Stoic approach. 1. Don't suppress your anger. Examine it. In the above scenario, Mary felt the anger rise inside her but kept it under control. She's well aware of her triggers and quickly recognized the micro or macro patterns of aggression in Steve's behavior. Through practice and mindfulness, she was better prepared to catch and neutralize her triggers far earlier, before her anger could take control. Let's be clear, Mary didn't suppress her emotions. That's not what Stoicism is about. Research shows that suppressing your anger can lead to chronic resentment and a higher risk of cardiovascular disease, especially in women. Stoicism, rather, encourages us to examine the nature of anger within us. Gregory Sadler, editor of the blog Modern Stoic, explains, Stoic philosophy actually provides us with a complex, robust understanding of how emotions, desires, assumptions and judgments intersect. It also gives us tools for analysis of what's going on inside of us, and a wide range of practices that allow us, if we put in the work, to respond in more rational ways to the challenges or setbacks we face. In this regard, Stoicism is very much like cognitive behavioral therapy insofar as they thought that emotions rested on, or had at their core, certain kinds of beliefs, impressions or judgments about the world. Knowing this, it's important to understand that no good comes from anger, and the only way to deal with anger is to not get angry in the first place. The best plan is to reject straightway the first incentives to anger, to resist its very beginnings, and to take care not to be betrayed into it. For if once it begins to carry us away, it is hard to get back again into a healthy condition, because reason goes for nothing when once passion has been admitted to the mind. And has by our own free will been given a certain authority, it will for the future do as much as it chooses, not only as much as you will allow it. The enemy, I repeat, must be met and driven back at the outermost frontier line, for when he has once entered the city and passed its gates, he will not allow his prisoners to set bounds to his victory. Seneca. In fact, Stoics thought that no degree of anger was reasonable, as it damages yourself, your partner, and society in general. We shouldn't control our anger, but destroy it entirely, for what control is there for a thing that is fundamentally wicked? Seneca. Sounds extreme. But if you think about it, anger is one of the only emotions that entirely takes control of our mind and actions. We do things we later regret, and it blinds us to the future and the consequences of our actions. And once we get angry, it's hard to back away. You don't feel like calming down, or being told to calm down, and you certainly think that anger justifies itself. Worse, anger is contagious. Remember the last time your partner was angry and you didn't know why? You probably got angry at them in return for having gotten angry at you in the first place. 2. Take a deep breath. Mary took a deep breath before responding to Steve, a strategy that the American Psychological Association suggests as one of the fastest ways to reduce the intensity of your anger. It allows you to pause and reflect, giving you time to allow reason to overcome passion. In essence, just wait a bit before reacting. The greatest cure for anger is to wait, so that the initial passion it engenders may die down and the fog that shrouds the mind may subside or become less thick. Seneca. The next time you feel anger welling up inside you, remove yourself from the situation and go for a walk, or withhold all actions until you feel better. Use the time wisely to regain tranquility and focus. This is very hard to do in practice, but with time, it works amazingly. The worst thing to do while walking away is to ruminate and justify your anger. Anger motivates revenge and retaliation and drives us to confrontation, all of which will never solve a problem. So sit on that angry email or text for a while before sending it. Take a deep breath, count slowly to 10, and repeating a phrase like, "Let it go, take it easy," or "Don't let this mess up my zen." Stoics also recommend using art, poetry, and music as calming devices, a technique known today as creative arts therapy or expressive arts therapy. This also includes dance, drama, and writing. In one study, 66 healthcare professionals used expressive writing as a way to voice their moods and emotions. The practice had a massive positive impact on both their physical and psychological health. It improved social interactions, increased cognitive abilities, and made work much easier to cope with. 3. Repair and restore. Don't punish. In the above scenario, Mary takes steps towards repairing and restoring the relationship instead of trying to convince Steve that he's a jerk. Mary's not a pushover, however. If Steve continues to push Mary's buttons, then he shouldn't be surprised to find himself locked outside the house with a note inviting him to find somewhere else to stay. In the moment, Mary attempts to understand why Steve is angry. To do so, Mary needs to admit that she herself most likely acted exactly the same way at one point in her life. We're all human and we all have acted in regrettable ways. Think back and ask yourself if you've ever been mean to your partner and later regretted it. Have you ever tried to manipulate them? Have you ever acted badly or even violently? We've all doled out pain and we've all received it. Trying to see yourself in others is a great exercise on how to deal with anger. Let us put ourselves in the position of the man who is making us angry. In point of fact, it is an unjustified estimate of our own worth that causes our anger, and an unwillingness to put up with treatment we would happily inflict on others. Seneca. Once Mary figures out why Steve is angry, her goal is to heal rather than punish or seek revenge. Steve may have caused an injustice towards her and that needs to be recognized rather than ignored. However, being angry with Steve only adds further damage to the situation, while showing discretion allows healing. How much better is it to heal wrong than to avenge one? Vengeance takes considerable time and it exposes a man to 4. Choose your partner wisely. You've heard the expression, "There are no problems, only solutions. Well, that's not always the case. Sometimes, you have to face up to the reality that some problems can't be solved. As a Stoic, your goal is to get rid of anger both in yourself and in your partner. But if your partner isn't willing to resolve their anger issues or continues to be abusive, you may need to consider ditching the relationship. Choose those who are honest, easygoing, and have self-control. The sort who will not arouse your anger and yet will tolerate it. Seneca. You need a partner who supports you, not one who brings you down. In a study involving 163 married couples, psychologists found that subjects with supportive spouses were more likely to take on potentially rewarding challenges. Those who accepted challenges experienced more personal growth, happiness, and psychological well-being just a few months later. As a general rule, surround yourself with people who bring more joy into your life instead of creating more misery and turbulence. 5. Don't find reasons to get angry. We live in a world of comfort and luxury, which makes us thin-skinned. As we grow up without real hardships, we learn to expect things from the world, and we get angry when those expectations aren't met. Consequently, we get angry at insignificant things, like having to do chores, losing our keys, getting cut off in traffic, or when our partner makes an inappropriate joke. It makes us feel good to be angry in the moment, but if we get angry every time our expectations about reality aren't met, we'll live an angry existence. Did you expect to be married with kids at this point in your life? Did you expect to be as rich and successful as those you follow on social media? Did you expect to be further along with your career by now? Don't worry, you're not alone. None of our lives are turning out as we expected, but that's no excuse to get angry about it. Stoics had a special exercise to deal with unexpected hardships and chaos. It's called negative visualization. It's basically asking yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And truly visualize what that might look like. Oftentimes you'll find that things aren't as bad as you make them out to be. When hardships do occur, you'll be more prepared and you'll be grateful for the times when hardships were absent in your life. 6. Roll with the punches. How do you deal with insults? If your partner is criticizing and berating you, don't let it get to you. Remember, you're the one who's in control of your emotions. Remember that it is we who torment, we who make difficulties for ourselves, that is, our opinions do. What, for instance, does it mean to be insulted? Stand by a rock and insult it, and what have you accomplished? If someone responds to insult like a rock, what has the abuser gained with his invective? Epictetus, Discourses A, 25.28-29. Here's a neat trick to use next time someone insults you: agree with them. Stoics often use self-deprecating humor to disarm their insulter. It's a practice in which we insult ourselves even worse than they did. By laughing off the insult, we not only prevent the insult from taking root in our psyche where it will cause us needless anguish, but we are also implying that we don't take them or their insults seriously. This denies them dominance over the situation and will deeply frustrate them. Isn't that more effective than a counter-insult? 7. Practice self-awareness. Self-reflection is central to Stoicism.